This panel is sponsored by Scripps Core 3 and the Intercollegiate Departments of Asian American Studies. And this is also being presented as a Core 3 final praxis project for Pia Chatterjee's Anti-Racist Transnational Feminist Coalition class that Mackenzie and I are both in. And yeah, I'm going to hand it over to Sue now. Professor Sue Castagnetto is the director of the Intercollegiate Feminist Center, and she'll be moderating today.
Thank you. Is it good to have the mic? I can also talk about it. Okay. Well, I just want to say what a fabulous job Mackenzie and Emma have done organizing this. My office organizes a lot of events, and we rarely get this kind of turnout, although I know some of you are students in the class. But anyway, it's exciting to see so many people here, and also some celebrities of sorts in the audience, one of whom is frowning, in the audience. And yeah, on this rainy evening. So my job is really easy because it's entirely scripted by the wonderful questions Mackenzie and Emma developed in their class. Just a little bit about myself. I've been working at the Claremont Colleges for quite a few years now. I teach philosophy and gender and women's studies courses, and I've been involved in prison work for about 18 or more years. Teaching courses, going over to the state women's prison with students, and being involved in with advocacy organizations in the community. So this is a topic near and dear to my heart, and I'm really grateful that you invited me to be the moderator, so thank you. So we thought we would start with just having each of the panelists say, give a short intro to themselves, i.e. a bio, and how they are somehow involved in the work of reentry and readjustment. So, Natashia, would you like to start?
Hello, I'm Natashia. I'm a criminal defense attorney, among other things. I'm also a writer. I work with doing post-conviction work, so after people come out, I help to clear records, to help them get jobs and move beyond the stigma of their past. A lot of people, some of them have not been to prison, some of them have been in jail. I also work at the beginning process when sentencing begins to help get lighter sentences or to set them up to get better outcomes in the future. So for instance, instead of a felony, I want to get a felony wobbler, which means that can be erased, things like that. So I'm very on the ground. So my part, I guess, in the whole process is being on the ground in the courtrooms, arguing for clients and for when they come out to retell their story. So that's my...
Hi everyone, my name is Fiske-Phillips and I'm the Associate Director at Crossroads Incorporated here in Claremont. Some of you might be familiar with. We work with women who are coming out of prison. We were the first program in California to accept women who had served life sentences and been paroled. So lots of our women still have served 30 and 40 years in prison. They're coming out and our program offers housing and all of the necessary items to live at no cost to the woman so she can focus on securing a job, counseling, self-esteem work, kind of wraparound services for 6 months, a 6-month residential program, and then she can move into self-sufficiency. And so one of our current residents is here. You'll hear from her in a second. And I'm going to pass it along.
Hello, hi, I'm Taylor Lytle. Although I always wanted to be a lawyer, instead I'm over-opinionated, formerly incarcerated, argumentative, organizer for CCWP.
It's not too late to take your argumentative skills to law
You know, maybe one day. It's working right now, so in the field I'm in. So I'm an organizer with CCWP, California Coalition for Women's Prisoners, LA chapter. We are based out there in Oakland right now. So Yeah, formerly incarcerated, love doing this work, been doing it for like, since I've been home, 3 years.
Hi, I'm Susan Bustamante. I did 31 years in CIW. I was formerly life without the possibility of parole. I got commuted December 22nd of 2017, granted parole on June 7th, and I got out on September 12th. So I haven't been out very long, and this is just an amazing process, and I'm grateful. Thank you for having me.
Hey, I guess I need this. So the first question is, what would have helped you if you were in prison, or the people that you work with, to avoid entering the prison system in the first place? And I guess for those of you who, the two panelists who do advocacy work and support work, what do you think would help people to avoid entering prison based on your own experiences? So whoever would like to jump in first, please.
What would have helped me prevent it? What would have prevented me? I would definitely say like I was thrown into the system, incarcerated system, like by foster care, and it was definitely like they used it as like an alternative to foster care, and it's like not so much like just a form of discipline. So foster care system didn't want to deal with me no more. So at the tender age of 13, they decided to throw me inside jail and keep me there from 13 to 17, barely letting me, enjoy my juvenile life on the streets. So, you have to adapt to that environment. So yes, I graduated into the adult system. So I would think what could have prevented me is foster care actually doing their job and taking care of their youth and showing some type of care. I was arrested at 13 for a terrorist threat, and from 13 to 17, I never caught a new charge. I was sent there for simply 777, which are refouls and violations. So I spent my whole juvenile life in jail for things that you shouldn't even go to jail for: smoking weed, getting kicked out of school, or running away from a group home. So I feel like the foster care system did fail me, and if they ever take interest in their youth, which they fail to still to this day, it would have definitely have prevented me from, my long journey through incarceration. So that became my norm, it became my life. So I understood why. I'm not making a excuse for why I entered the adult system, but I understood why I entered, because at a point I felt my life was like much safer in there than in the foster care system. So I would definitely say foster care, start paying attention to their youth and start developing some type of system that actually work, because their success rate is like ridiculous right now. Is zero, to be honest. So I think definitely if people start paying more attention to the needs of our youth, it prevent a lot of people heading down that awful path.
What I see is, I was a child of molestation, so I learned then to be a victim of domestic violence. So back in the 70s, whatever happened in the house stayed in the house, so you never spoke on it. But I think teachers still need to be more aware of what the child is acting out or not acting out, or imploding on themselves. And there was no domestic violence. There's very little shelter, if anything, back in the mid-70s when I was going through it. So I was in my early 20s when I was married to my husband. When I went to trial, I had a 2-day trial, so there was, back in our day, there was nothing on domestic violence as a defense. We're the ones from CIW who put domestic violence as a defense on the legal system, on the books, because of the fact that, but it still didn't help us. They didn't ever go retroactive. So when you have a 2-day trial, there's a lot missing, so I could have used, it's hard when you don't have a good defense or an understanding of the legal system.
I'd like to echo some of what's already been said, but in my work, I've been surprised at how interconnected all of the systems that we have in this country are, from the school to prison pipeline to the failures of the policing of Black and brown bodies. All of these things are so interconnected that it's almost impossible to look at the failures of the judicial system without looking at those other systems that have contributed to where we are with the prison system. So I don't have as much of a personal take on it, but I would say that 95 to 100% of our women have been failed multiple times by different systems before they even got to prison. So
I have, I guess, a personal take on it and a professional take on it. Personally, I know I have had foster children. I've had 4 foster brothers and a foster sister. 1 is working, 2 are working in the Air Force, 1 is in Germany traveling, and then 1, we've struggled with. And I think if foster families were also more prepared to deal with children, because we don't think about the trauma that they've already gone through before they come to you. There's no training or mental health or counseling that they provide you until you make a report that they've done something wrong. So now there's a terrorist threat on our family, and now this child is being taken away. And I have been in a position with my youngest brother, who is now 19, when I had to say, after there were terrorist threats, not to our family, but to the school, I had to say, look, you have 8 minutes. I said, they're gonna send the police here. I can call an ambulance and we can get mental health care, or the police is gonna come to get you. I need you to make a decision. And I've had to make that call because there is such a neglect on the mental health. When he came to us, he had burns all over him, other things that happened, and I don't know that foster families are also prepared to deal with what you're dealing with, and also that poor child who doesn't know what's happening, who to trust, so you're in that position. And when you talk about this exacerbation of a small crime, Taylor that's horrible that would happen to a child. You get terrorist threats and you keep, if there's a violation. So let me give you an example for people who haven't been in that position. Say you get pulled over for a traffic ticket, you have tinted windows. You're speeding, now you have a tinted window, so now you have a ticket for tinted windows. You don't show up. So now there's automatically a $10,000 warrant for you because you didn't show up to court. You're doing something else, you forget about it, or you can't make it, you can't get the day off of work, and now you get pulled over, you have a $10,000 warrant for your arrest. They will arrest you because you have this warrant for this tinted window. And now you've lost your job because you can't be there, you can't pay this warrant, you gotta wait for your jail date, and it just gets worse and worse and worse as you don't show up. And for a child that's not mature enough to know, if I don't show up today, all these bad things are gonna happen, it just gets worse, and when you get caught in this system, so it's a system that perpetuates these bad things. It's hard to get out of it. Does that make sense? And especially when you're immature and you don't know, and you don't have guidance of an adult that you can trust. So you're a 13-year-old doing these things, saying, okay, I'm gonna run away, I don't wanna be here, right? Because it makes sense to a 13-year-old. I don't wanna be in this group home where they put me, so I'm gonna run away, and now you violate it and you're back in jail again. And it just keeps happening, and there's no stop unless you have a mature person there to say, you know what, this isn't gonna happen. These are the choices. And I've had to tell police, you're not coming in my house. He's in here, but you ain't coming in here. But if you don't have foster parents who just wanna be good-natured and just love a child, if they're not seriously prepared on the consequences, it puts everybody in a bad situation and it sours everything. So that's what happens, in my opinion, personally and professionally.
Thanks. And I just want to say, we can come back to any of these questions. We'll have a Q&A at the end of the hour, or the end of the panelist session. And since I know that our student organizers want you all to be thinking about what you can actually do to change the system, ideas about how we can prevent what people actually need would be interesting to discuss too at the end. What kinds of projects can we get involved in, or how can we participate in collectively changing the world? Okay, on to question 2. So what are the most challenging things for people who are getting out? Are the That's just the beginning of the question. Are the challenges of reentry different or more complex for women? And what issues specific to women, femmes, and gender nonconforming people within the prison and in reentry do we not address? So any of those questions are fair game.
Okay, I'm
Please.
going to start this one. Technology. I've never used a cell phone. So the first day I got out, first I was handed money. And I wanted to just put my hands up because for 31 years I hadn't touched money. But my family said, we've been getting your stuff, you get it. You know, so I had to get my own water. And then I was handed a cell phone where I was doing a FaceTime with my friend, you know, and I'm like, I didn't know what to do. I was afraid to break it. I was afraid to push the wrong button, you know. So still technology because I still don't have a cell phone. The bus system is different. The program that I'm in is a very good program. It has a very good foundation of what it's for, but yet being inside prison, when you're told you're having freedom, you think of woohoo, but then you come and it's still the structure, and mentally it's kind of hard to catch up with yourself because you have one idealism of freedom and then you have the reality of freedom, which you still need that structure, because if you don't have the structure, you don't, with the choices and the how do I do it, and like tonight was the first time I had asparagus in forever. You know, things like the little things you don't think about. So your mind is fighting with itself to focus on the program, and it's only 6 months. Some people say, oh, these 6 months go fast. Some people say it goes really slow. You know, so I mean, you're still in the yin and yang of getting adjusted to, especially since I was never supposed to be out here. So doing something like this is wonderful because I also miss my family that I made inside. They're still in there with life without sentences. There's still no reason for them to still be there. My friend Leslie and Pat, they're still political prisoners. I mean, there's so much unjust that I get frustrated and I get sad, and I'm like, it's hard to appreciate freedom as freedom is because there's people who still don't have it that should have it.
I would say I would definitely pay attention to the things that make people return back to prison. So things that they were lacking upon their release, such as, like, we all know in the state of California, housing is such a huge necessity right now, and I've dealt with extreme homelessness myself, even being formerly, foster youth and emancipated out the foster care system, which I was, told that I have an adult case at 19 years old, so it's nothing much we can do with you, so you ready to get emancipated? And I was like, it's not a choice, so I have to get emancipated. So I definitely think, like, things like housing, we come out of prison and we're not, fully equipped with, the knowledge to how to go about seeking, public housing, and even to go about it, it's like year-long wait lists, and our parole officers don't care about that year-long wait list, or do they even care about, even just housing, around. We think about the programs that we have to, house women. I'm gonna just speak about housing because I believe this is what caused so many women to fall, down under. And I stay off Skid Row downtown, even though I have housing, and I see so many people I was in prison with down there on Skid Row, and it's just like this, this road that they're gonna continue to, it's like a setup for failure. They release them knowing they don't have nowhere to go, and yet it's not enough programming out here to, just give them adequate housing. So I think housing is a big issue, and the programs that we do have in place, like I feel like most predominantly of them, they service you and give you services while you're there in the program, but it's like no aftercare. There's no, like, if you complete this program, you could get Section 8 housing. Like, it's only like while you're there, you get this, and it's like once this 6 months is over, once this year is over, it's like, what then? It's like they expect you to just save up money and be able to, pay your first month, move in. It's like they just have all these expectations, and the way to meet these, expectations is just like so many hurdles in between. So definitely, and we don't have no housing that, is directly for the transgender community. So housing become even more scarce with them. So I believe if we could get some type of housing formulated for, people that specifically coming out of prison, we'll see a huge difference in the recidivism rate. And I'm confidently speaking from someone that suffered with this and was ready to go back to prison because I have parole breathing down my neck, but yet I couldn't meet his demands by finding a stable place. So it's like, I'm gonna go one day, let's stop, let's not pay this cat and mouse chase game. Let me just go back to prison. And it's sad that I have to be faced with only them options, be homeless or go to prison and get options. But this is what so many people are faced with. And I've seen so many people not want to come home because they have nothing to go to on the streets. Like, I'm willing to take my chances, but can you just imagine somebody faced with just them options, stay in prison or, go to the streets to nothing? Like, I don't know about y'all, but I believe this is America, and this is just unfair that them are the options our women in our transgender community is given. So I believe if we start focusing or at least start paying attention more to the housing need of people coming out of these institutions, I believe that would definitely start making a difference in the recidivism rate.
In our context, especially with our women who have served life sentences, so again, 30, 40 years. I think the two hardest elements are, one, choice. Susan talked about that a little bit, but coming out after 30 or 40 years of having very little choice, it can be really overwhelming. So often if I'm talking to someone who's bringing one of our women on the first day, I'll say, if you stop for food, give them a couple of options for what they can eat. Because sometimes even looking at a menu can be so overwhelming. And we've had a lot of women come almost paralyzed, and it takes a while for that to kind of sink in. And the other element is just the logistics of being a citizen in this country. I can't tell you how long it takes to get an ID sometimes. It's extremely frustrating. We have women who have been waiting months and months for IDs, Social Security, all kinds of benefits. All of that stuff, they're huge hurdles for women coming out of prison. And I think that in our program, they're lucky to have the program director there helping them through that process, but for women who maybe aren't in a program or don't have someone around to tell them, this is how you fill out this form, or this is where you need to go, a lot of it gets lost in the system. So logistics are extremely difficult coming out of prison. You're good?
Oh, good, okay. Thank you. So the next question is, being a woman may mean different things if you're Latinx or Black or Asian or Native or mixed race, or if you're white. How do you see these differences, possible differences, as impacting reentry? In other words, how do you see race or ethnicity as impacting women's experiences with reentry? You could just have, no one wants to answer, that's okay.
It's so crazy to say race specifically, but I would say more like, where you stay at geographically. Like, you could be Black in Beverly Hills, of course your services is going to be more, you're going to have way more options and stuff. So and I think it's more so where we live in our communities and the lack of resources out there for us. So I don't believe a person that's getting released, to Pacific Palisades, would deal with the, same issues I deal with. I'm not from Watts, but I'm down the street from Watts, so y'all might be more familiar with Watts. I'm gonna say Watts, California, So definitely the limited resources due to, the areas that we are in. And we have to be realistic. These are, the more high crime areas. So these are the areas that people are coming back into when they're released out of prison. So I don't know if there's a way to change that. I don't know, get people more actively involved when it's time to, vote and, more of our. I don't know how to change that. I do think because it's such a huge need. And these are more the impacted areas, so these are more where people are going to be released to. I think it's just a lack of money going around, period. So reentry is the last thing they're focused on, and I just have to be honest about that. So I'm really not big on even speaking about race type person because I believe there's so many people racially, have more of a better opportunity than, somebody. I think it's more of the area you're growing up in and the amount that they give to the community in that area. So definitely in our city, the lack of resources is due to the lack of funding that they're willing to even invest in reentry. So just once again, that's the lack of housing, the lack of mental health services, the lack of education, pursuing education for formerly incarcerated people, just anything that benefits. We're starting to get more jobs that's hiring formerly incarcerated people, and that's a very big step. And better jobs with better wages, because we know minimum wage don't do nothing in the U.S. So I believe we just have to put people in a more we have to give them, a decent start in life. We can't expect them to, just do everything on their own, start from rock bottom. We have to give them an opportunity to actually prosper. So, putting people in more, beneficial waging jobs, I think that's good, and they can start focusing more on their housing and stuff. So, yeah, it's just the lack of money in our communities. That's what. The lack of reentry services.
Sorry, Susan.
I'm not looking at the race issue, but I'm looking at the elder issue. I went in at 32 years old and I'm now 63. So mentally I'm still in my 30s. So I'm thinking I can work anywhere, do anything. But then realistically, who's going to hire somebody at my age? Just starting out again. Yeah, I'm a certified dog trainer, but you still have to have your resume. So for 30 years in prison, what's your resume look like? And then the housing, that's very scary. I'm grateful I have a daughter who's wanting me to live with her. Other than that, where would I go? What part of the city would I live in as an older person on Section 8, probably? And even getting that, you have to have credit. We don't have any type of credit at all. We don't have credit cards, we don't have bank accounts, we don't have any of that stuff to start getting our credit. So that's an issue.
That's a really good point, Susan. When we talk about age discrimination and things like that, when I teach my law school students to also teach law, one of the questions I ask them is, when do you think discrimination starts? For what age does discrimination start for age? And people will say 60 or 50, and it's actually 40 years old. At 40 years old, the government, the Constitution recognizes that you'll probably be discriminated against starting at 40, the same as if you were a woman, the same as if you were black, the same as if you were, is 40 years old. So when you're talking about being 63, trying to start out again, that's real. You know, all those things are, everything that you're saying is real. I'm not trying to qualify or anything like that. But that's a real thing. And it's funny that we're talking about race and money. You know, money, rich people don't go to jail. That's the reality. Rich people say, we want to talk about money, we want to be real. They don't go to jail. They have really high-paid attorneys. They get some sort of deal. They're not in jail. So we're talking about the warehousing of poor people. But what struck me though is recently, so I've been practicing for almost 20 years. And about maybe 4 years ago, I remember I was at a talk and people were asking me about different crimes and what are the possibilities. And I remember I was talking about an armed robbery, I was talking about a murder, I was talking about all these different things. And then somebody raised their hand, they said, oh, well, these are black people. I was like, no, all these clients are actually white people that I've represented who were poor. And it was the first time that I realized that most of my clients, the people who could, even though I do pro bono services or very low cost, were not people of color. They were mostly white people. They were some Asian people. They were some Latinx people. But primarily, usually there was no, I represented very few black people. I think the one that I represented was a professor at a university for a child molestation case. And it was the first time I looked at my own caseload because I'm so into putting the fire out that I never paid attention to it. I'm not policy driven, I don't work creating the policies, and I'm not saying that my experience represents everybody who's getting services, but I know that there is a race element in it because I also go to prisons to teach, and I know that all those faces mostly look like me, but the people who come to get services from me don't look like me, and I don't know why that's happening. And it was just 3 years ago that I was like, wow, I didn't even think about this. And I seem like my friend Kate here, and we know clients that I've had, and none of them are African American. You know, so I don't know why that's happening, and I need to take a look at the policy side of it, even though that's not my role in the machine, so to speak. But still, it's an interesting point. But I don't, from personal experience, I think it is a race issue. But I can't say from a policy, like I haven't taken numbers, but definitely.
Thank you. Many women inside, in fact, most women inside are mothers, and a number have been the primary caregivers of children before going to prison. How could recognition of that fact change the way we consider and practice criminal justice? I think that's kind of big.
I can go first. The reason I got into this work was around the time I was 12 or 13. The church that I was going to had a program called Get on the Bus. It was actually co-founded by our current executive director at Crossroads. And it's a program that takes kids to see their incarcerated mothers and fathers for Mother's and Father's Day. And at the time, I was obviously the same age as most of the kids that were going up on the bus to see their parents. And so I told the people I wanted to volunteer, and they told me that I couldn't really volunteer because they were my peers, and it was a little bit just a weird boundary. So they said, what we'll let you do is we'll let you go up ahead of time, and you can go and cook the meal with the women on the inside who don't have children coming up. So I got to go up, and I got to, actually, I think I should take that back. I think they were the moms of the kids coming up. And I got to cook the meal that we were going to eat with them. And it was the most transformative experience in my life to date. Because as a child in the society, I was told that they were bad people, that they were, because they had done bad things, they were bad people. And all of these lies that I've been fed my entire life, and then I met them, and they were people, they were human beings, and I connected with them, and I shared in that humanity. And so then seeing them with their children, be excited to see their parents, or scared to see their parents, or all of the mix of emotions that I also had in my own life, was really transformative. And I don't really know the answer to that, but I think through that time I was doing a lot of fundraising for the organization. And I had a local business owner tell me that she wouldn't support us because she didn't think children belong in prison. And I was like, well, of course children don't belong in prison, but their parents are there, and that's the only way they can see them. So I think, I don't know a lot about the system from that vantage point, but children need to be seeing their parents. They need to be interacting with their parents if that's what works for their family. And I don't think it's very feasible for kids to see their parents who are incarcerated. So working on visitation, I think, and that's why participating in Get on the Bus was so, I think, important to me.
And so maybe I can turn this into a slightly more radical question based on what you were saying. If we really centered the experiences of people who are caregivers, thinking about those relationships that prisons sever, and the fact that a number of people get punished along with the person who's inside,
Right.
how does that actually, might that press us to rethink the whole system of isolating people as if they're just abstract individuals committing crimes, separating them off from society, separating them off from their family relationships and friends and community and so on? Maybe I'm just reframing that question as, what if we centered the people who are punished unfairly, I don't know, it's not a good way to put it either, but if we really centered relationships and thought of people as being significantly in relationships, and that's almost a human rights violation to deprive people of that by putting them in prison, how might that help us? Maybe this is just too abstract.
No, it's not at all. Actually, this is what I argue in courtrooms. I argue that this is a mother, or this is a father, but this is a mother and she needs to be there with her children. And then the judge or someone or the prosecutor will say, well, she knew, that she had children before she did this thing. I said, but you know better. Judge, you know better. So you can help this mother and this child or these children not to be this way. So I would use everything, every part of humanity, whether it's motherhood, whether it's, the good work that they've done here or there, to ask for mercy for clients, after, when I'm asking for pardons from the governor. This is a mother. So it absolutely comes into play, and it's part of the story, and it's part of the problem that's at the border right now, where you're trying to demonize parents, and taking them away from their children. And it's something I think at the core of us, if we bring that, front and center, I think that people will respond to that and say, why would you do this? I know as a mom, I was in England. I had the privilege of living in London when I was pregnant with my first child. And I remember I couldn't afford to get back because I was there, I was with my husband, the flights went up like crazy, I couldn't get home. And I was 38 weeks pregnant, the cutoff is like 34 or 36, and I remember standing there with the flight place, and they're like, how pregnant are you? And I'm like, 30 weeks, and I lied because I knew that I wanted to get home. I wanted, this is not the same plight of people coming from Mexico across the border, but for me it was that important. I said, if my daughter wants to be president one day, I'm not going to stand in the way. I know that she has to be born there. I know that there are benefits to being born. I want to get there. And I put my own life in danger, probably my daughter's, for that 15-hour flight to make it home. It was that important to me. So when I see these mothers who have traveled 2,000 miles with their children, I know what that means. And I just had this little piece. It was still a first world country. I'm still in England. It wasn't terrible, but I know what it meant to me. So when I'm in front of a judge, I can argue, motherhood and this child, especially if it's a daughter, even if it's a son. So it makes a difference to bring these arguments to the forefront.
My daughters were 8 and 11 when I went to prison. They're currently 42 and 39. I raised them inside when we had the family visits. So they got to come and spend 3 days with me. And when they were teenagers, the system took away the family visits, which punished them for being able to spend time with me. So being inside, seeing all the women who didn't have access to their children because the families, the victim's family had them, so they took the kids away and punishing the woman, but they're punishing the children. When they had to get on the bus, that was so fantastic because I remember seeing the women just being so excited about seeing their kids and the kids just clinging on to them. You know, the women inside, I'd say at least 95% of them are either victims of some type of childhood trauma, some child abuse, some child molestation, and then some domestic violence situations, boyfriends, whatever led in their life. You don't just wake up and say, oh, let me have a bad day. Something took your self-esteem. So then you end up being, needing somebody which is the wrong person. And so then you go to jail, or you get caught up, or you go on the streets. But the women are not bad people. They just made bad choices. But it's not fair to punish the children. And the visiting room, like at CIW, it holds like 150 people. Well, when you have a prison of 28,000 people, somebody's going to lose out on visiting, or the families it's too crowded, takes too long to get in. My daughter, I didn't see her for 9 years because she said, Mom, I don't want to do this no more. They get tired of having to wait a couple hours to get in to see you and all that you have to go through, and the monitoring and all that stuff. But it's a punishment to the children and also to the moms.
I feel the system know how to think humane or look at women or people in a motherly image when certain type of people commit a crime and not others. So how I look at it, if the system could be honest about the racial injustice that's involved in it, then we could start making progress. But I could see somebody, I see it daily, and it really baffles me as a human being that we could sit here today in 2018 and have two people commit the very same crime, and one is thought to, made a bad mistake or have mental health issues, and one is, throw away the key, don't ask no questions. And this is happening in 2018, and guess what? It's justified by them. Like, that's what kills me. Like, it's justified. Like, they could do this, and, we can't do nothing about it. And when I see crimes be compared to crimes and, kids of mass shooting facing less time than a gang member that committed one murder, like, this is happening in our country. So, they know how to, hold people in a motherly image. Is just the fact that, it's only certain people that's going to get the opportunity to be even sought out in our life. And it's so many of us that don't. So we have to definitely adjust the racial biases and injustice within our system, because, we all know it's racially motivated. Like, everything that's done in the system, and it's wrong, and it's, we're powerless behind it. We cannot do nothing. Their actions, they do it as if their actions is justified, and they get away as if their actions are justified, and there's reason behind them. But we have enhancements and things like that, and laws in that place that, keep our people, in our communities, gang members and stuff like that. If you really get into the law and what makes us get more time than an average person committing these crimes, it's enhancements and stuff against, set up specifically for people in our community. Like, a mass shooter don't get these enhancements like a gang member in our community does. So, the system just has to be dismantled and rebuilt with, honestly, true care, and there's no care within the system right now. So,
Thank you. And I think we want to allow time for Q&A, so I'm going to end the formal questions with this one, which will invite people in the audience to think about how they can get involved. So what would you like more from your communities or the community to help those with the reentry process? However you want to think about community. So.
Well, mine's just a small thing. I was talking earlier about like language choices and using instead of saying inmate or felon or things like that, saying formerly incarcerated women and putting the humanity back in the language that we choose is really important to me. It's like a quest of mine that we need to be choosing our language very carefully. So that's my piece of advice, is think about the words you're using, think about the words you're choosing, and realize that they can have really severe impacts.
I say, think about the things we're supporting, educate everyone. I'm a firm believer that if people were fully aware of what the system entails and what its true intentions and goals is, that, you know, that we will want different, we will fight for different, and we'll come in mass numbers. And that's the only way to make a huge difference, is everybody on the same page and mass numbers, angry enough to not stop until we see change. And I'm angry, I'm so angry, and not just because I was systemically impacted, I'm angry because I'm done. My life is over, and it's like I'm never going back. I know that for sure. So why am I still angry? I'm angry for the people that will never get this chance to sit out here and tell you what goes on in here. It's wrong, it's unjust, and this whole system that we got designed in this country is unjust. And unless we show up in mass numbers, you know, refusing to accept no, we won't have reentry. We won't, you know, this talk about justice reform would die, you know. And even though we're not justice reform, we're prison abolitionists, but we're going to accept this right now and, you know, continue on with the fight until we get what we want. But it takes the majority of us, it takes the people that are privileged to get out there and be angry too. Like, y'all don't know, but y'all definitely is like a big piece. Unless y'all get angry along with us, nobody care about our our anger. It takes people that know they're privileged in the system to, you know, make the system, you know, acknowledge how, you know, they treat others differently, you know. So I would say people that, you know, is not necessarily impacted by this, educating your people and, you know, standing, you know, firm with us who are impacted or who are prison abolitionists. That's the only way, you know, we gotta hold people responsible for the injustice that they're causing, is, you know, to people, you know, to people in our country. So, yeah, unless we show up in the masses and show up, you know, thick with the right people, making the right amount of noise, then we'll probably see some real type of transformative justice going on.
What I would say is, see the people inside as people. You know, never say, not me, because I'm sure there's times where you've gotten in a car with somebody that's drunk, or you went to that barbecue and had a couple of beers, or whatever, and there's so many people inside that got in that car accident, vehicle manslaughter, doing 10 years because they just went for a drink. They were just in a car. So then they're saying, why me, why me? You know, so don't ever think that this could not happen to you. I never thought I'd go to prison. I never thought I'd be involved in hating somebody so bad that I didn't care they died. You know, you just don't know what's gonna push you over the edge. So if you can see the people inside as people and get involved, like with CCWP, and get involved in advocacy. I've had a woman that came in 2004, and she says, I want to help you get out of prison. And I said, can you just write, tell me you're okay? Because so many people promise, oh, I'm gonna write you. And she did all her steps by just being a friend, just trying her hardest. She did my clemency, and that went to the governor. You know, so you never know when you're gonna impact somebody's life. And there's so many young people that are just lost in that system, and they're so angry because you have a youngster that has like 18 years old, 19 years old, with 62 to life. Can you imagine somebody looking at you and saying, okay, you're never going to get out because by the time you get out, you're going to need your walker or your wheelchair because you can't walk on your own because you're so old. That's what these people, these youngsters are looking at now. So they need people on the outside who care that your life matters enough. Let me help you fight for yourself. But unless we're willing to fight for them from out here, that's what I'm doing. I'm not walking away. I'm going to fight my ass off. Sorry.
So as an attorney, I've had that moment a lot where, you know, where people are like, what are you going to do for me? And it's like, I have these many hours. How am I going to do this as one person? And so for me, it's just showing up, you know, one at a time. So finally, about 2 months ago, friends of mine, attorneys, some from Warner Brothers, some from other places, we said we can put together all of our minds and come up with a project that can help people when they get out. And it's called Redeemed. We've only recently, like, they'll be mad that I even, because I mentioned it for the first time like 3 days ago. They're like, you're not supposed to say anything yet. We haven't launched. But I mean, it's coming together. People like in Hollywood, attorney, just because we need funding. You need money. When you don't have time, you need money. I have 2 children. I have a disabled son. Like, I only have this many hours, right, to do this thing. So getting together to make a place where all these services, like where Sarah works, for all these services to be in one place. So after those 6 months, where can they go? How can they get that ID sooner, or those services or housing and things like that, to put it all in one hub, so we can go there and all these organizations come together. Like, I didn't know that your organization existed, and since I announced that like 2 days ago, all these organizations at different college campuses have come and been like, hey, we do this too. You know, organizations you wouldn't know about, and there's universities that want to help, people that want to help. Writers in the arts community who are like, I can write this story, I can write this brief and retell Taylor's story to show that she's a survivor. You know, she's done these things, she's doing these great things, and it makes a difference when I have to take that brief and talk to a judge and ask for mercy and say, can you erase this thing? Can you give this person? So really, so Redeemed is going to be an organization that holds all these organizations in one place. So there's services that are easy to find. Or you can come and visit people and say, I need to talk to you about what to do after these 6 months and things like that.
Thank you. And a couple of things. One is that, as you're suggesting, we have enormous resources at the Claremont colleges that we can bring to use for making change, abolition work, reform work. Students know how to do research. Students have an incredible amount of energy. That's why they're sitting here in this room. And we would all like to partner with you in ways that don't exhaust you, but actually help you build with your work. The other thing is, I know I'm not on the panel, but I would just say everybody should go inside. And that builds on your comment, Susan, to meet people and find out who's inside. There are lots of opportunities at the Claremont colleges. There are inside out courses that are being taught. There are other opportunities to go inside, and I take students over to CIW. There's also a Crossroads open house coming up for the holiday, which is a great opportunity to meet Susan's friends.
Maybe you want to talk about it? So in the spirit of humanity, on December 15th from 1 to 4 p.m. we will be hosting our annual open house, and it's, I don't know if you all are familiar, I think it's still called Wolf's, right? The market, is it still there?
I think so.
Okay, well, where Wolf's is on Harvard, right across the street is our house, and we're hosting a holiday open house where you can just come and have some snacks and talk to the women, and it'll be a great event. And so all are welcome. If you want more information, I'll send the flyer out, and you can also see me afterward.
And if you send it to me, I can send it to everybody.
Perfect. Yeah, we'd love to have you on there.
Yes, and students are very good at advertising events, as you can see. So thank you so much. Perhaps we should go back. So we have a microphone here that we can pass around, or maybe we have a traveling mic, which I just. For anyone who would like to ask a question of the panelists.
going to do Q&A now, and if anyone has any questions, I can bring the mic to you.
I'd like to ask how going back to court after re-entry is like, some of the common legal battles that you have to fight after you come out.
I'm not a legal professional, so I'm gonna just tell you from what I, knowledge. You have to deal with restitution, which is, Lord, it's just money, like court fees and stuff, I guess. But like, you pay on it during your incarceration. So if you don't fully pay for your restitution, it will follow you upon your release. So you will still be obligated to pay for it. I know. Fortunately, mine was already paid for before I got released. And you have to pay for restitution before you're actually able or considered for possible like probation or parole release. So if you got a lot of restitution before you even get off, unless you get a waive, you'll be responsible to pay that. And I think that's like the biggest issue, like post-release you'll deal with when it comes to like finances and stuff is paying off them initial court fees. That's from the beginning, and it's kind of rough for a lot of people like that went to court for many years. They're still responsible to pay all that, so that's the biggest struggle. And I'm very like persuasive, so I got all my stuff waived. I don't know shit.
Hi, I have a question written down, so I'll look at my phone. What are your thoughts on for-profit prison-owning corporations who are shifting towards capitalizing on re-entry, such as CoreCivic, which was formerly Corrections Corporation of America?
Hi. I was having a long talk with Sarah, and I hope I kind of felt I was probably, being a little harsh, and I apologize. Okay, I just felt that because, I understood that they were funded, by CDCR, and, we know they're for prisons, so they are prisons. So definitely how we think about them, we want to abolish them along with the system, like, there's no need for them. Like I said, we're in this big talk of prison reform, but at the end of the day, we're prison abolitionists, so we're accepting where we're at, but this is not where it ends. Until the system is fully dismantled, that's when we're gonna, rest, and we understand, like, places like Crossroads, and we understand where this money comes from. No offense, I'm not gonna put Crossroads' name out there no more, because they're in the room, but, Amity, let's say something like that, but we understand, we understand their position, but at the end of the day, we are who we are, and anybody that support prison and for prison, like, it just has to be dismantled. So it's plenty of nonprofits and organizations right now capitalizing off this reentry thing, and definitely for-profit prison, for-profit. So definitely it's becoming a big issue right now. But as us, as prison abolitionists, as we've been here many years before, like we're just trying to, expose these people and ultimately dismantle them along with the system. We do not stand for this. We understand prison is prison labor, and we understand the intent for prison is free labor, and we even found colleges that, get their furniture for prisons, and this is, oh wow, scripts, sorry. But y'all might want to start searching for new furniture places. As long as I'm out here, we're doing this work, and this is, it's insanity. Like, I never knew scripts, that's insanity. Like,
They claimed they didn't know either.
Yeah.
oh, they didn't know? Okay, we're going to give y'all a pass, but next year we got to fix that.
Yeah, we were having a really good conversation about this before, because for my position, obviously we need to keep the doors open. So when that check comes across the desk every month, that means we can keep our doors open. When I first started working at Crossroads a year and a half ago, so we're a subcontractor, so a contractor will get the contract from CDCR, and at that point, it was through GEO, which is the biggest for-profit prison in the country, and so every time that GEO check would come across my desk, it was just like, okay, I gotta deposit this, I just gotta do this. And thankfully now we do have a new subcontractor, which I was saying has a bit more of a soul, I think, is a little bit it is less for-profit. I don't know if they're quite non-profit. They seem to be working on it. But yeah, programs like Crossroads are in a position where, either we put in jeopardy our license and our funding, or we take that money, and so it does kind of feel like a lose-lose situation. I would love to get Crossroads to the place where it was completely independently funded. We do have grant funding and we have community funding, so it's definitely a possibility at some point. But yeah, we profit from the system, and I think until we change, I don't know, it's hard to say because prisons and reentry programs now are so profitable. I don't know how we'll ever get ourselves out of this hole. I want to get us out of this hole, but I don't know how much it's like.
Can I just ask a clarification question? So I knew that Crossroads got a big chunk of their funds from CDCR, but can you explain exactly how private prison corporations are involved in that? I don't really understand.
It's a little bit complicated. It took me a while to understand as well. So CDCR, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, I believe,
Yes.
has this amount of money, right? And contractors will bid on how much they think they can do the services for. So they might say, we can do it for $20 a person a day. And they'll have a bidding war for the contract. And so that's why GEO had the contract last year, and now Amity has underbid them. So they are the contractor. Amity is the contractor. We are a subcontractor of Amity. Therefore, we get our checks from Amity, who gets their money from CDCR.
So, but I'm still, sorry, I hope this is an interest to you. So when you said the contractor provides the services, which services? So are you talking about specific, like, drug and alcohol services, or?
Right, so Amity is, so you can either, so Amity is also a contractor. They provide services. They have thousands of beds themselves. And so then whatever they don't feel they can serve, they subcontract out. So I don't know exactly.
I'm just not sure. I knew back when I was a little involved in Crossroads that CDCR was providing Crossroads with funds for each person that was being served. Mm-hmm. So where does the middle person come in? Where is this?
Yeah, so that's Amity. They're doing all the administrative work. So their folks are coming out to make sure we're in compliance. Their folks are, making sure that all the funding is done properly.
Okay.
So they're basically taking all of the work off of the shoulders of CDCR for that money, and then giving it to the providers from there. Yeah.
And the way I look at it is that it's sad when one women's prison up in CCWF is basically bigger than Sweden's whole prison system. There's 32 men's prisons. They took the third prison from the women that was up in Valley State, right across from CCWF, to give it to the men because of their overcrowding. What's wrong with this picture is it's warehousing, and that the prison guard system is so strong that they get everything they want. They get their raises, they get their retirement, they get everything they want, and yet there is no overview of all the suicides in prisons. There's no overview of all you're doing is fencing off, and you're not giving enough mental health. You're not giving the youngsters enough therapy When I first went in, we had actual therapists giving us the groups that we need. You don't have that anymore. These women have hours and hours to do nothing but get in trouble and fight. And then they wonder why there's suicides. You wonder why there's so many fights. The prison system's a monopoly. The CCPOA, which is a prison guard system, they're the only one in the state that runs the whole prison system. There's no breakup of it. And the private sectors, all they are is prison guards that out of retirement that are running it and making more money. It makes no sense. Questions?
Just thinking about that, how is the prison guard system so strong? Because I never really thought of it. I mean, I considered that maybe people may choose to do that job because of job security, but I didn't realize that it was such a prominent, like, oh, this is a job that would be good for me financially or something like that. Could you just elaborate on that?
They're the highest paid babysitters in the state. So I'm not sure, is it a sergeant or senior makes about $6,000 a month working in there. So you gotta I'm sorry, I wish I could have chosen a better career path.
With a high school education, a degree only?
Yeah, only high school. Yeah, definitely I'll be a prison guard. And I don't mind that.
80% of the retirement of the paid when they retire.
Oh wow, so you look at that. So yeah, you have all these people coming on, like all the kids that got bullied in school and stuff, coming on to be a prison guard. So we and a lot of force, and that's why they're so strong too. They pump fear into us. I was one of the ones that went through the hells of the prison system. I was thrown faulty charges on me. I got my shoulder thrown out of socket. So I was actually going through hell in there, and I'm not the type that bow down too easily. But they forced me down, trust me, and that's why I can't go back. So you have an army that has, it's his own army against us. Like, it's only so much challenging we could do. And then we lost the unity inside prison. Back in the day, they joined together when they seen injustice done in prison, and they fought against it. And now people are so scared. No offense, we have, people facing life without the possibility of parole. You're asking them to go do this sit out or do this hunger strike when their future of getting released is dependent on this. It's like that's a 115 if you get caught up into that. Like, we're telling them to sacrifice their freedom, just for a little bit of prison justice. Like, it's asking a lot. So we have now the unity is gone, and they knew how to do that. Like, the guards knew what they were doing when we have these people that been in here 30 plus years and want to go home eventually. So we took all the, the leaders, the people that would structure these hunger strikes and these sit outs, they took our leaders from us. So now we just have these useful people who, we're new in prison. We don't mind getting no more time. Well, I didn't, to try to fend for each other, and it's like we lost it. It's lost. Once you took our, the structure, which was our elders, out of the picture and gave them some hope, because now they're going home. And it's like now we have all the youngsters that still have a long time of incarceration. Like, we're trying to fight for things, but we don't have, the backbone of the prison. We don't have the support system no more. So most definitely we're going against an army of people, and there's only a few of us that's willing to make them sacrifices. So that's how they so big. And, plus they got weapons against our non-weapons. So so a lot of people make them, it's a growing industry, and there's a lot of people involved in. It's like an army within the prison system.
I also recently read that COs have a higher rate of PTSD than people returning from the military. So that's just telling you a little bit about the atrocities.
And then if one of the staff members has a bad day, or his wife is bullying him, or she's being beaten up by her husband, they come in and get the keys. And they have the power, and they have the threat to us. But also the sentencing. when, let's say you do a crime 20 years ago, you not only now today get the sentence that is crazy years, you get 5 years added enhancements, even though you did your time. Let's say back in your juvenile, you were arrested, 3 different times. That's 15 years. 5 years per crime that you did, already paid the time for, added on to your sentence. So if you got a 10-year sentence, you're looking at 25 years. Because it's not only the sentence plus the enhancement. That's what I'm saying. They're warehousing people, and so why not act out? What's there to lose? Until you get my age and say, oh, I want to go home.
I'm sorry, can I say one more thing?
Oh, yes, please.
I just wanted Scripps to think about when you buy this furniture that somebody slaved 3 to 6 cents
Yeah.
for that piece of furniture. And I'm talking about prison labor is modern day slavery. I mean, it's what it is. We cannot, and because y'all keep supporting these systems, is why they're going to keep, like I said, it takes people that's privileged to stand up and say, we will not accept your privilege no more. We will not accept your, $2 dresses that you're going to give us because we know who's slaving for it. We have to, be humane about things and know that our people are suffering at the hands of our, wanting to be a little cheaper. We have to.
Gate money, that hasn't changed in forever.
So I don't know if you were asking something along the lines of the strength of the union, but in California, the prison guards have an extremely strong union. And I don't know that they're as strong as they used to be, and you probably all know more about it than I do, but they're very influential with politicians, and for a long time, all the tough on crime bills were supported by the police union, and they throw tons of money.
And the Tate LaBiancas.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much.
Political prisoners is real. I do know Leslie Van Hout and Patricia Krenwinkel, great people. Their crime happened 50 years ago, and they're still being held because the people that hold Folgers, that run Folgers, is back in the CCPOA, and the Tate LaBiancas are keeping them still in prison. So you're paying for people that are in their 60s and 70s that have been in prison for 50 years to keep them there.
And isn't CCPOA the prison guards union?
Yes.
Aren't they also
Yes.
but aren't they also connected with Crime Victims United?
Yes.
Don't they support the crime? I'm pretty sure they
I'm
are.
pretty sure they
Yeah.
are.
Kobe said it's true.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they actually helped start the most punitive crime victim groups in California that have been huge in doing legislation for all these enhancements and basically trying to keep people in prison forever. They funded the whole project.
Would you like the mic?
Oh, she'll need I introduce her.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. That's Kobe Lance, my idol. She's the head organizer for CCWP Los Angeles chapter. She was gonna kill me on the ride home. Just I sacrificed myself for y'all. CCWP once again is California Coalition for Women's Prisoners, and the work we do, we don't have enough time to go over it because we're toes on the ground, head into the work and doing phenomenal work. And we have women a part of our nonprofit that attend Scripps College. So if you ever get involved with us, if you want to go back inside, we're the route to go. Plus, I'm there.
Sorry, I keep grabbing the mic even though I'm not on the panel. But we have a form over in my office, just right next door, Intercollegiate Feminist Center for CCWP that has, you can fill it out, put your name, email address, and there are a variety of opportunities that CCWP has to get involved from, being a pen pal with a person or getting involved in projects of various kinds. So come on over, visit us at IFC, and we have the forms you can fill out. And sometimes they have meetings right here in Vita Nova Hall, just next door. So.
Okay, we have time for one more question, so I'm going to hand it over to.
I just want to say thank you for being here. We talk a lot about action and collective action, and we recently just had the largest prison strikes in 20 years or something like that. in September. But like I was wondering like how organizing inside looks different than organizing outside, and then also going along the themes of the prison guards, like how they make efforts to suppress organization inside.
Well, CCWP, blessed upon us, we are inside outside based nonprofits, so we do have organizers on the inside and we have organizers on the outside, and I think that's what makes us so strong and very successful in the work that we do. Which we're responsible for getting the water walked off, several things that we're, very active in. I think that's what it takes, that connection between, having people on the inside that could, give us the truth about what's going on versus what CDCRs, tend to give you when things happen, the escalating suicide rate up in here or something we've been tackling too. So I think organizing on the outside need to kind of coincide with organizing on the inside. That's the only way we can get, truth and have real success in the work that we do. And we got to be mindful of the type of information they send out. It's the chain of command of CDCR. They're never going to make their prison look bad. The warden don't want their name to look bad, so the information they give us is going to be limited. The investigations they do surrounding anything that goes on in there is very limited when it comes to information. So having people there on the ground doing this work is it has been very beneficial for our nonprofit. And of course, like I said, we got the warden. We forced her into an early retirement, CCWP ourselves. So when you talk about, the Prison Guards Association trying to suppress, organize on the inside, of course, that's their main focus. So, and definitely they have a hard on for CCWP because of the work that we do. So, sorry, wrong terminology. But for the work we do, so definitely they don't want us in there. So when we go in there, we're very cautious. This is why they don't send me in there, because I don't have a filter. So definitely, it's just a chain reaction. So I think that's what a lot of nonprofits lack, is that inside, outside organizing, all under one roof. I think is way more effective.
And also that you have people that are, like me, I was inside. So whenever I would have the chance to make a phone call or the chance to have a one-on-one when they would come visit, we told the real stuff. You tell what it was really like, the lockdown, the strip outs, the tearing up our rooms, all the stuff that they do. There is nothing that I didn't let known that I knew. I was in a position not to know too much, but I knew enough, but then they promote people and put them in other prisons. That's their thing.
I think the hardest part of organizing on the outside, this is what I'm discovering as we start launching this new organization, is that people are thinking about the victims too. There's real talk. Victims have to live with that for the rest of their lives. A year and a half ago, my father was murdered, even as I am a criminal defense attorney. And there are things that I want, and there's punishment that I want. That's real talk. And when you're a victim who has been sexually assaulted or something like that, they're thinking, if I have to live with this for the rest of my life, why don't you? So it's hard to bridge this gap of compassion and empathy for perpetrators and victims and their families that are left behind. So real talk is that on the outside is we have to be able to build this bridge. So even though this has happened to me, I still believe in the humanity of this other person who's on the inside, and that is the bridge. And that's something I had to come to as a daughter who has just not that long ago, and I still wake up, terrified, seeing my father's face, his death face, and the machines and all that, and still having to forgive this person who did this to him. So how do we do that? I don't know how we do that. So the questions that people are asking me when I say, because we were just going to put together our FAQs, our frequently asked questions. We thought that was simple. That was going to be the last step before our launch. And we were like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And people are like, well, why would we want those people? Well, what kind of people are you trying to help? Well, who are, and we're like, There are people who are in prison who've served their time or who have done these things, but that's the hang up. That's what people are hung up on. Why should I want to help this person? And that's the question that we have to figure out in order to move forward.
Any last, I guess we need to wrap up, but any last pressing thoughts that any of you would like to?
I do
Okay.
want to say one more thing.
No, really?
No, not about
Surprise
scripts.
the opportunity.
I'm gonna let y'all stay. Just think about what I told y'all today. But I do want to say I too am a victim, you know, and a very heinous crime has been committed against my family too, and the person is still, you know, going through the court system, and you know, for a long time I refused to admit like I did prison abolition work because I wasn't a prison abolitionist. I believe this person needs to be in prison, and it took a lot of humbling, and it took me to you know, get to really know the majority of people that, you know, wrongfully impacted by this system, and that's what kind of, you know, softened my heart and got me, you know, head on into this movement. And, you know, I don't do it for that person. I don't, you know, base the work I do off that one person. So I base it off the majority of people that suffer because of this system that we have in place. So as my family is a victim, and as that person is, you know, probably going away for the rest of their life, you know, I do what's right, and I know I do it for the greater good and for the betterment of our community. So even as a victim and a person, you know, that holds a certain feeling towards this person, I get out here and I do this work, you know, and without any malice or hate on my heart, and with full dedication, because I know too many people that was wrongfully, you know, impacted by this system. So I'm able to put aside my true feelings about this person for the greater good and the bigger cause.
Well, I want to thank our panelists, an extremely inspiring panel. Thank you for giving your time to us tonight and sharing your thoughts and inspiring all of us to get involved, perhaps even more than we're already involved. And the Prison Abolition Club, 5C Prison Abolition Club, is a great step to take if you're not already involved and want to get involved. Come over to IFC and get that form for the California Coalition of Women Prisoners. So thank you again, all of you, for coming, and onward to a better world.